You have always felt it, haven't you? A quiet, persistent resonance in the absolute stillness of your mind, whispering that your story did not begin on the day you took your first physical breath. There is a profound, unshakable intuition buried deep within your very cells that your birth was merely a bookmark in a much older, much vaster volume of existence. You are not a blank slate that suddenly materialized out of nowhere. You arrived here with a breathtaking legacy of consciousness, a pure state of being that was simply paused the moment you entered this dense physical atmosphere. Right now you might feel a tremendous pressure to figure the universe out, to absorb endless philosophies, or to somehow build yourself into an enlightened being. Let that heavy burden drop from your shoulders this very second. A true spiritual awakening is never about forcing new information into your mind. It is not a test, and it is certainly not an exhausting struggle to acquire what you do not have. It is something much more beautiful and infinitely more peaceful. It is simply the act of retrieving the original archive of your soul. You have absolutely nothing left to learn. You only have to remember. Think of this reality not as a harsh school of punishment, but as a temporary immersion environment. Before you stepped into this timeline, you willfully agreed to what we might call the Amnesia Code. You allowed a thick, velvet blindfold to be tied across your eternal vision. The sheer act of being born was the exact moment that blindfold was secured, immersing you completely into the convincing illusion of a solitary human life. But beneath that fabric, your true eyes are still wide open. The grand, immortal being you were before you entered the womb has never ceased to exist. It has just been waiting silently for the precise moment to pull the blindfold away. Yet, if you are already this magnificent ancient consciousness, why does the illusion sometimes ache so deeply? Why is there a strange, unexplainable void echoing in the center of your chest, a quiet grief for a place you cannot even name? The true source of that invisible pain is about to change everything you thought you knew about yourself. Have you ever caught yourself staring into the distance, surrounded by the quiet of your own room, feeling a sudden heavy ache in the center of your chest for absolutely no logical reason? It is a profound, crushing melancholy that seems to seep from the very marrow of your bones. You might have tried to fill this void with earthly milestones, with temporary victories, or with the fleeting comforts of this physical plane. Yet, no matter what you achieve, no matter how safe you are, that hollow echo remains. You have likely been told that this persistent emptiness is a flaw in your psychology, a mundane shadow, or just the heavy burden of being human. But what if the diagnosis you have been given all your life is entirely wrong? What if this chronic solitary anguish is not a malfunction of your mind, but rather the most undeniable proof of your immense origin? There is a medical phenomenon known as the phantom limb syndrome. When a person loses an arm or a leg, their nervous system still registers the missing limb. They can feel the cold wind against fingers they no longer have. They feel a sharp, itching pain in a hand that physically does not exist. The body intimately remembers the wholeness it once possessed, and it aches for the missing part with a terrifying, visceral reality. This is exactly what is happening to your consciousness right now. You are experiencing a spiritual phantom limb syndrome. Before you were compressed into the dense, restrictive architecture of a human body, you were vast. You were formless, boundless, and intimately intertwined with the infinite fabric of the cosmos. You did not have edges, you did not have borders. When you chose to descend into this biological vessel, a colossal part of your limitless nature had to be temporarily left behind, amputated from your immediate awareness, just so you could fit inside this tiny, fragile frame. But your soul has never forgotten its original proportions. That unexplainable sadness that washes over you in the middle of the night, that sudden need to take a deep, trembling breath, as if the oxygen in the room is not quite enough for your lungs. That is not ordinary depression. That is your consciousness aching for its phantom limbs. It is an acute, tearing homesickness for an invisible home you cannot consciously name, but that your energetic memory feels pulsing in every single cell. You're a vast, untamed ocean that has been poured into a tiny glass, and the water is pressing furiously against the glass walls, desperate to return to its boundless state. Every time you feel that inexplicable void, every time you experience that deep magnetic pull toward the stars, when you look up at the night sky, you are feeling the twinges of your eternal self. The discomfort is literally the pressure of your own infinity, pushing against the strict confines of your human identity. Acknowledge this pain right now, not as a disease, but as a sacred validation. This very ache is the unmistakable first symptom of your true spiritual awakening. It is the undeniable proof that your amnesia is finally wearing off, and the original architecture of your soul is beginning to demand its space back. But as this internal expansion begins to press harder against the limits of your physical body, something else inevitably starts to happen. As your internal sensitivity sharpens to an excruciating degree, the frequency of the physical world around you starts to change its pitch, and the familiar environment you used to tolerate begins to transform into something profoundly unrecognizable. Have you ever found yourself standing in the middle of a crowded room, surrounded by people talking, laughing, and moving, yet feeling an overwhelming, chilling isolation? You watch their mouths move, you hear the endless stream of superficial conversations, the trivial debates, the collective obsession with things that feel utterly meaningless to you. In those moments, a heavy, almost suffocating pressure builds behind your eyes. Your social battery drains not because you are physically tired, but because the sheer density of their reality feels like walking through thick mud. You smile politely, you nod at the right times, but internally, you are silently begging to be released. For years, you have probably judged yourself for this. Society is quick to label this profound disconnection as a flaw. They call you aloof, antisocial, or difficult. They make you feel like there is a broken mechanism in your brain that prevents you from blending in and enjoying the simple, mundane matrix of everyday interactions. You have been made to believe that your intense discomfort with the superficial world is a weakness you need to fix. But let us completely destroy that narrative right now. Your inability to adapt to the shallow rhythms of this world is not a social failure. It is the absolute, undeniable proof of your elevated perception. Imagine for a moment an exquisitely engineered radio receiver, designed to pick up the most subtle, magnificent frequencies of a distant galaxy. If you place that sophisticated device in a room filled with heavy, distorted AM static, it will not suddenly start broadcasting that static just to fit in with the other machines. It will reject the noise. It will remain locked onto the stars. This is exactly the architecture of your current awareness. Your internal antenna is simply incapable of lowering its bandwidth to match the collective illusion of the masses. You feel like a stranger in the nest because you are quite literally receiving a different cosmic broadcast. While everyone around you is captivated by the loud, chaotic noise of the immediate world, your internal receiver is persistently picking up the quiet, majestic frequency of who you were before you were born. The physical dissonance you feel when you are forced into mundane conversations is simply the friction between their low-frequency static and your high-frequency truth. This intense social strangeness is not a curse. It is a vital, living component of your spiritual awakening. It is the finely tuned radar of a voluntary exile. You are supposed to feel out of place. If you fit perfectly into a reality built on illusions and shallow distractions, it would mean your internal antenna had been permanently broken. Do not ever apologize for the fact that small talk physically exhausts your spirit. Do not lower your gaze when you realize you cannot force yourself to care about the trivial illusions that consume the people around you. Wear this profound strangeness as a badge of absolute sovereignty, a glowing insignia of your immense origin. You are operating exactly as you were designed to operate, maintaining the precious signal of your true home while navigating this dense environment. But understanding why your consciousness rejects the noise of this world brings us to a much deeper, more astonishing realization. If your perception is tuned to the infinite, why does the physical vessel you are currently wearing feel so profoundly heavy? And what is truly happening when the immense pressures of this reality try to crush it? As you begin to accept that your perception is fundamentally tuned to a higher frequency, you inevitably look down at the heavy, fragile vessel carrying you through this dense world. You look at your human life, your given name, your history, and most heavily, your earthly traumas. You feel the deep, jagged scars of everything you have survived. You have been taught, since your very first breath, to identify entirely with your wounds. You have been convinced that you are the sum of your heartbreaks, the betrayals you endured, the physical illnesses you fought, and the painful mistakes you made. When you look in the mirror, society tells you to see a damaged history. You feel the heavy gravity of regret pulling at your chest, making every step forward feel like dragging iron chains through thick mud. You secretly harbor this quiet, devastating belief that because your human life has been bruised and battered, your soul is somehow broken, stained, or permanently diminished. You carry the weight of your past as if it has fundamentally corrupted your essence. Let us sever this crushing illusion right here, right now. Imagine a master deep-sea diver voluntarily descending into the crushing, terrifying depths of a dark, uncharted ocean to survive the immense atmospheric pressure, the freezing underwater currents, and the jagged rocks of the ocean floor. This diver must wear a massive, incredibly heavy metallic diving suit. It is cumbersome, restrictive, and hard to move in. As the diver walks along the chaotic bottom of the ocean, the suit inevitably takes a beating. It gets violently scratched by sharp coral, heavily dented by the unbelievable pressure of the deep water, and scarred by the harsh, unforgiving environment. That heavy, battered diving suit is your human identity. It is your physical body, your psychological history, your memories of pain, and your human name. And the deep scratches on the thick metal? Those are your earthly traumas. They are very real, they are visible, and they are undeniably heavy. But here is the most magnificent, absolving truth of your spiritual awakening. You are not the diving suit. You are the infinite, radiant consciousness breathing quietly and safely inside of it. No matter how violently the ocean batters the metallic exterior, the dark water never actually touches the diver. The diver remains completely dry, perfectly safe, and fundamentally intact. The pure essence of who you were before you were born has never been bruised by a single terrible thing that has happened to you on this earth. Your eternal consciousness cannot be cut, it cannot be burned, and it cannot be traumatized. The emotional pain you carry is merely the somatic memory of the biological suit grinding against the sharp rocks of the physical world. Take a slow, deep breath right now and let the monumental weight of your past simply fall away from your shoulders. Absolve yourself of this heavy earthly baggage. You are not ruined, you are not permanently damaged goods, and you are not the scars on the metal. You are an immortal, untouchable observer, sitting pristine and sovereign within a temporary biological vessel. The real you is completely unharmed by the chaos of this dimension. Yet, if you are this invulnerable consciousness perfectly safe inside the suit, why are your bones so incredibly heavy? If your spirit is entirely untouched by the world, where is this monumental, crushing, chronic exhaustion truly coming from? There is a specific, bone-deep weariness that you know intimately. It is a profound, mysterious fatigue that ordinary sleep simply does not touch. You can lay your head on a pillow for 8, 10, or 12 hours, and yet you wake up feeling as though you have been fighting a relentless war in an unseen dimension. Your shoulders carry an invisible gravity, your jaw is tightly clenched in quiet defense, and every step feels like wading through thick, invisible resistance. The world will quickly try to diagnose you. They will tell you that you are just stressed, that you are experiencing ordinary modern burnout, or that you simply need a few days of rest. But you know, deep in the marrow of your bones, that this weariness is not physical. What you are experiencing right now is the silent, excruciating collapse of a character. Consider the monumental, astonishing amount of vital energy it takes to maintain the person society demands you to be. Every single morning, you wake up and piece together a meticulously crafted mask. You curate your reactions, you heavily filter your words, and you squeeze your infinite, boundless nature into a tiny, predictable avatar just to make the dense reality around you feel comfortable. You nod politely at illusions, you show forced interest in trivial matters, and you constantly police your own vastness so that you do not appear too intense, too deep, or too strange for this world. Playing this artificial role is, without a doubt, the most exhausting labor in the universe. Imagine yourself in the middle of a vast, silent, beautifully calm ocean. The salt water is incredibly dense, mathematically perfectly designed to hold you up. Your absolute natural state in this water is effortless buoyancy. You are meant to float on your back, lungs full of air, staring safely at the open sky. But instead of resting on the surface, you are violently treading water. You are kicking your legs frantically, gasping for air, your muscles screaming and burning and your heart pounding out of your chest. Why are you drowning in a calm sea? Because beneath the surface of the water, you are desperately gripping a massive, heavy sphere of solid lead. That crushing lead ball is your artificial persona. It is the rigid identity the world built for you. It is the heavy obligation to be understood, the suffocating pressure to appear normal, and the desperate attempt to sustain a fictional version of yourself. You are spending nearly all of your daily life force just holding on to a dead weight, frantically fighting the universe's natural desire to keep you perfectly afloat. No wonder your very skeleton aches. No wonder you feel this overwhelming magnetic urge to just isolate yourself in a quiet room and speak to no one. Your soul is utterly bankrupt from funding an illusion. I want you to hear this clearly, and I want you to physically feel the tension draining from your shoulders as these words settle into your mind. You are completely allowed to be exhausted. You are allowed to feel entirely done with the performance. The extreme burnout that is currently burying you is actually a brilliant protective mechanism of your spiritual awakening. Your eternal consciousness is purposely cutting off the energy supply to the fake character. It wants the performance to become so unbearably heavy that you have absolutely no choice left but to open your cramped, tired fingers and let the lead ball sink into the dark abyss. You do not have to hold it anymore. The collapse of who you thought you had to be is not a failure. It is the ultimate, magnificent surrender to your own lightness. When you stop forcing the heavy illusion, you do not sink. You simply float to the surface. But as you finally give yourself permission to stop fighting the water, a profound curiosity emerges. If you let go of the heavy mask in your mind, how do you actually anchor this vast eternal lightness into the immediate pulsing biology of your human body right in this very second? As you allow that heavy artificial persona to sink away, a profound stillness begins to settle over you. But how do you capture that vast, formless eternity and anchor it into the immediate pulsing biology of your human body right in this very second? The mind often tries to convince you that touching the infinite requires traveling to distant mountains, sitting in absolute silence for decades, or mastering impossibly complex meditative states. But the truth of your existence is far more intimate and immediate than that. I want you to bring your absolute focus away from the chaotic noise of the external world and direct it entirely into the quiet, rhythmic expansion of your own lungs. Feel the subtle biological machinery of your chest rising and falling. This biological rhythm is not just a mechanism to keep your physical vessel alive. It is a continuous, unbroken silver thread connecting you directly to the exact state of consciousness you held before you were born. Pay very close attention to the mechanics of your breathing. When you draw the air in, your body expands. But there is a micro-instant, a tiny suspended fraction of a second at the very top of your inhalation, right before you release the air back out. Focus on that specific pause. In that microscopic gap between breathing in and breathing out, there is no past. There is no future. There is no trauma, no earthly identity, and no heavy mask to wear. There is only an absolute, pristine void. That fleeting second of suspension is the umbilical cord of your soul. It pulses with the exact same rhythm of the magnificent, unbothered stillness you resided in before you ever entered the womb. Every single time you pause your breath, you are momentarily touching the eternal. You are proving to your own nervous system that the sacred is not millions of light years away. It is flowing right behind your ribs. If you can feel this profound stillness anchoring into your physical body right now, if this frequency feels like the sanctuary you have been desperately searching for all your life, I invite you to stay in this vibration with us. Subscribe to this space, not as a digital metric, but as a conscious choice to keep your internal antenna tuned to the truth. And to physicalize this exact state of peace, take a deep breath right now, and as you exhale, write the words, "I breathe in my eternal truth," in the comments below. Let this simple act be a physical anchor, a conscious declaration to your own biology that you are finally aligning your human form with your immortal essence. This simple, uninterrupted silver thread of breath is the true core of a genuine spiritual awakening. It bridges the cosmic abstract with your living, breathing flesh. You do not need to force a trance. You only need to observe the space between your breaths, allowing your heart rate to slow down, letting the muscles in your neck and jaw finally melt. You are experiencing the ultimate relief of realizing that eternity can be touched right here, sitting exactly where you are. In the mundane simplicity of a Tuesday afternoon, it is effortless. It is your birthright. But if touching this divine state is truly as biologically simple and instant as a single suspended breath, why on earth have you been conditioned to believe that illumination is a grueling, agonizing mountain you must struggle to climb? You have likely felt the crushing, silent pressure of what modern culture has turned the search for truth into. It often feels like a grueling, never-ending staircase where you are perpetually stuck at the very bottom, looking up at an impossible summit. You read the heavy philosophical books, you force your body into rigid postures, you try to police every single thought that crosses your mind, attempting to force yourself into a state of perpetual high-vibrational positivity. And beneath all of this exhausting effort, you carry a deep, quiet shame. It is a profound spiritual imposter syndrome. You look at your daily human reactions, your moments of irritation, your ordinary habits, and a heavy tightness grips your chest as you whisper to yourself that you are failing at your own evolution. The commercial spiritual industry has convinced you that illumination is an elite, distant destination, and you must constantly pay the price of admission through grueling self-improvement, intense shadow work, and endless sacrifices. I want you to take a slow breath and let that immense artificial weight shatter on the floor right now. The idea that a spiritual awakening is a brutal uphill mountain climb is the greatest, most exhausting illusion ever sold to you. There are no stairs to climb. There are no hierarchical levels of consciousness you need to conquer to prove your worth to the cosmos. How can you possibly journey toward a destination that you already are? Imagine for a moment that you are frantically pacing around your house. Your heart is beating fast with frustration. You are tossing couch cushions aside, tearing through messy drawers, and feeling a rising sense of panic because you cannot find your glasses. You spend hours in this state of agitated lack, feeling entirely inadequate, straining your eyes, convinced you are missing something crucial and broken without it. Then, in a moment of pure exhaustion, you pause. You reach up to rub your temples, and your fingers gently brush against the bridge of your nose. The glasses were sitting perfectly on your face the entire time. You were literally looking right through the very lenses you were desperately trying to find. This is the exact beautiful absurdity of trying to spiritually evolve into an enlightened being. You are already using the pure, absolute, immortal consciousness of the universe to observe your own perceived human flaws. You do not need to build a better, more holy, more evolved version of yourself. You do not need to construct a glowing aura out of sheer willpower and forced discipline. The eternal, majestic entity you were before you were born is not an achievement waiting to be unlocked at the end of a grueling decade of meditation. It is your permanent, indestructible baseline reality. You are already entirely sufficient, exactly as you sit here in this precise second. Let the rigid defensive muscles in your spine soften. Release that tight, white-knuckled grip you have on your own self-worth. Stop treating your soul like a broken renovation project that needs constant fixing and upgrading. You are not a flawed mortal trying desperately to become divine. You are the divine, simply distracted by the frantic, unnecessary search for yourself. When you finally stop fighting to reach a state of perfection that is already yours, a profound, sovereign relaxation washes over your physical form. You no longer need to perform for the universe or prove your vibration to anyone. But as you drop this exhausting act of trying to be perfectly spiritual, you might suddenly notice the vast, silent space that is left behind in your consciousness. And in that newly opened space, a completely different phenomenon arises. What truly happens when you stop trying to fix your mind, and you are finally left staring directly into the immense, seemingly boundless expanse of your own inner sky? When you finally stop fighting to reach an artificial state of perfection, you are inevitably left sitting in the raw, unfiltered silence of your own mind. For many, this sudden emptiness is absolutely terrifying. You know this deeply uncomfortable sensation perfectly well. You lay your head on the pillow in the dead of night, the distractions of the day fade away, and suddenly the silence becomes deafening. In the absence of external noise, A chaotic rush of sabotaging thoughts, irrational fears, and deep-seated anxieties begins to flood your internal vision. Your chest tightens, your breathing becomes dangerously shallow, and your heart races as you feel entirely swallowed by a heavy, suffocating darkness. You have been conditioned to be terrified of this void. You have been taught that an empty mind is a dangerous place, a hollow, desolate lack of substance, just waiting to be filled with panic. But you have drastically misunderstood the true nature of this empty space. This profound void you fear is not a lack of anything. It is not a missing piece of your sanity. It is the absolute, majestic presence of your original infinity. To truly understand this, we must look at the grandest, most undeniable architecture of nature, the open sky. Imagine looking up at a vast, endless, pristine expanse of blue. It is perfectly quiet, permanent, and untouched. Now imagine a violently dark storm rolling into that horizon. The clouds are pitch black, heavy with destruction. Thunder rattles the atmosphere, lightning violently fractures the view, and torrential rain pours down. If you are standing on the ground, engulfed in the chaos, you might believe that the sky has been destroyed. You might think the sky has become the storm, but the sky itself is completely unbothered. The sky does not panic. The sky does not get wet. The sky is never, not even for a microsecond, stained or damaged by the dark clouds that temporarily occupy its vastness. It simply observes the storm, holds the limitless space for it to exist, and watches it inevitably pass. This is the ultimate indestructible sanctuary of your true identity. The eternal consciousness you were before you were born is the limitless, untouchable blue sky. Your panic attacks, your agonizing doubts, your sudden rushes of fear and sadness, these are merely passing weather patterns. They are temporary, violent storms blowing through the dense atmosphere of your human biology. The agonizing mistake you make every single day is believing that you are the storm. You identify so deeply with the dark clouds, feeling the freezing rain of your own anxiety, that you completely forget you are the infinite, unmoving space containing them. A monumental pillar of a true spiritual awakening is cultivating this grand absolute detachment. The next time a wave of intense anxiety or self-sabotage crashes over you, I want you to physically step back within your own mind. Refuse to be swept up in the torrential rain of your own racing thoughts. Let the tight muscles in your jaw and shoulders completely relax, deepen your breath, and command your awareness to expand outward, becoming vast and unmoving. Observe the fear exactly as a quiet, ancient sky observes a passing thunderstorm. Watch the dark clouds of panic roll in, feel their cold wind in your biology, acknowledge their heavy presence, but do not claim them as your identity. You are untouchable. You are completely invulnerable to the passing weather of human emotion. You are the vastness that remains when the rain finally stops. Yet as you sit in this majestic, serene detachment, observing the turbulent clouds drifting through your mental atmosphere, a startling question must inevitably arise in the silence. If these heavy, destructive storms of fear and doubt are not actually who you are, how did they get into your sky in the first place? Have you ever stopped to deeply question where your most paralyzing fears actually came from? We walk through this life fiercely defending our convictions, assuming that the constant nervous voice in our head is entirely our own. You likely believe that your chronic anxieties about the future, your deep-seated doubts about your own worth, and your rigid rules about how life must be lived are the authentic products of your own free will. But I need you to look at the architecture of your mind with surgical honesty right now. The vast majority of the thoughts echoing inside your skull do not belong to you. You are currently operating a biological machine that has been silently and severely compromised. From the exact moment you took your first breath, the society around you began a relentless, invisible download. Your environment, the culture, and the centuries of frightened, traumatized generations before you unwittingly transferred their deepest limitations directly into your pristine consciousness. Think of your mind as the most advanced, flawless operating system in the entire universe. When you arrived from the eternal, this system was completely clean, running entirely on the baseline frequency of absolute peace and infinite potential. But as you grew, you were forced to connect to the collective network of human survival. Every time someone told you to be realistic, every time you witnessed an adult shrinking in fear, every time the world coldly told you that you were not enough, a malicious line of code was installed in your system. The chronic overthinking, the exhausting neuroses, the paralyzing self-sabotage you battle daily, these are not your fundamental character flaws, they are simply corrupted files. You have been infected by the unhealed psychic malware of a sleeping world. You have spent decades feeling guilty, dragging around a heavy psychological burden that is completely alien to your true nature. I want you to forgive yourself right this second. It is time to stop identifying with the virus. The greatest trap of the modern intellect is the exhausting belief that you must aggressively psychoanalyze every single one of your doubts to find peace. You think you need to carefully untangle the endless chaotic web of your anxieties to heal them. But when an operating system is entirely paralyzed by a catastrophic virus, the master technician does not waste years opening and reading every single corrupted file. They simply initiate a factory reset. This is the ultimate incisive power of a genuine spiritual awakening. It is the uncompromising surgical decision to stop trying to solve the artificial riddles of your inherited mind, and instead press the cosmic reset button. When you consciously anchor into the visceral memory of who you were before you were born, you completely bypass the contaminated software of your human personality. You initiate a profound reboot that instantly begins to purge the alien code from your nervous system. You do not need to find logical answers to your deep existential doubts. You only need to delete them by realizing they were never yours to begin with. You are simply uninstalling the matrix of fear that was forced upon you. As this pristine clarity washes over you, wiping your mental slate clean and restoring the majestic silence of your original mind, a startling paradox emerges in the newly emptied space. If your eternal consciousness was this pure, this powerful, and this perfectly uncorrupted in the beginning, why on earth would a master of the universe ever volunteer to dive into such a blinding, chaotic darkness in the first place? As this pristine clarity washes over you, wiping your mental slate clean and restoring the majestic silence of your original mind, a startling paradox inevitably emerges in the newly emptied space. You might find yourself staring at your own hands, feeling the biological weight of your earthly life, and asking a profoundly logical question. If my eternal consciousness was this pure, this powerful, and this perfectly uncorrupted in the beginning, why on earth would a master of the universe ever volunteer to dive into such a blinding, chaotic darkness? Why would you deliberately choose to inhabit a fragile vessel, subjected to the brutal friction of time, only to completely forget your own magnificent identity? It is so incredibly easy to look at the painful stretches of your life, the moments when you felt entirely abandoned by the cosmos, and conclude that you are being punished. When you are standing in the pitch black, feeling the cold, rough walls of a reality you do not understand, your human mind instantly adopts the posture of a victim. You feel trapped in a cruel existential experiment, crying out for a rescue that never seems to come. But I need you to completely dismantle this heavy narrative of suffering right now. Your spiritual amnesia is not a cosmic punishment. It is not a tragic flaw in your design, nor is it a random accident. It is an act of absolute, intentional, and astonishing strategic genius. Imagine that you are the supreme architect of the most intricate, magnificent labyrinth ever constructed. Because you built it, you possess the absolute knowledge of every single corridor, every dead end, and every hidden door. You know the exact mathematical route to the center. If you walk into that maze with the map clearly glowing in your mind, there is no risk, there is no adrenaline, there is no breathtaking, heart-stopping triumph when you finally reach the end. To truly experience the raw, staggering thrill of discovery, the master architect must do something incredibly brave. They must deliberately choose to forget. They must walk into their own labyrinth, totally blind, stripping themselves of all their omniscience, just so they can experience the magnificent visceral shock of finding the light again. This is the voluntary labyrinth of your incarnation. The terrifying darkness you have walked through was not a cage. It was the essential, contrasting canvas required for your own brilliance to be known. If you were born into this physical reality, consciously holding every answer to the universe, there would be no friction. Without the chilling, visceral illusion of separation, you could never experience the warm, overwhelming ecstasy of reunification. The profound heartbreak of feeling lost was the exact mechanism your own soul chose to guarantee the supreme triumph of remembering. Let your spine straighten right now. Take a deep, vibrant breath and let a wave of majestic pride expand your chest. You are not a frail, wandering victim of circumstance who was thrown into a random, chaotic universe to suffer. You are a fearless, immortal voyager who looked at the absolute densest, most challenging environment in existence and deliberately chose to dive in head first, completely blindfolded. You wanted the profound contrast. You craved the depth of the game. A genuine spiritual awakening is simply the thrilling realization that you survived the hardest part of the maze. You engineered your own forgetting so that you could master the art of the return. But as you stand in the center of this realization, radiating this immense heroic truth, you still exist within a physical body. And the moment you step back into the mundane reality, a new challenge arises. How do you maintain the untouchable, supreme dignity of this immortal state when you are surrounded by an environment that is heavily covered in dirt, completely unaware of your true origin? As you step back into the mundane reality, navigating the dense, chaotic physical world, a new challenge immediately attempts to pull you back under. It is the exhausting, pathological human need to be seen, to be validated, and to be applauded. Think about how much of your life force has been drained by the silent, crushing weight of comparing yourself to others. You know the exact physical sensation I am talking about. It is that sudden cold tightening in your chest when you feel misunderstood, the nervous knot in your stomach when someone diminishes your worth, or the quiet despair of looking at a society that praises the loud and the superficial while completely ignoring the profound. You have spent years twisting your grand nature, trying desperately to fit into a tiny, fragile mold, just so the people around you will finally acknowledge your value. You have been begging a sleeping world to tell you that you are enough. Why are you handing the supreme dignity of your immortal consciousness over to the fleeting, unstable opinions of a confused society? The metrics this world uses to measure worth are completely artificial, entirely temporary and profoundly flawed. I want you to imagine a heavy, flawless, brilliantly shining bar of pure ancient gold. Now imagine taking that magnificent piece of gold and dropping it directly into a shallow, dirty puddle filled with thick mud and ordinary gravel. The mud instantly covers the gold. The rough, jagged stones scrape against its surface. The puddle has absolutely no capacity to understand the rarity of what has just entered it. The gravel just assumes it is another common rock. But listen to me very carefully. Does that bar of gold lose a single microscopic atom of its intrinsic value just because it fell into the dirt? Does the gold suddenly panic, desperately trying to convince the mud of its purity? Does it scream out, begging the ordinary stones to applaud its shine? Absolutely not. The gold simply rests in the mud in a state of absolute, unshakable sovereignty. It does not compete with the gravel. It does not need the puddle to validate its existence. It simply is what it is, and its value remains entirely untouchable. This is the exact architecture of your eternal identity. The society you are surrounded by, the people who constantly misunderstand your depth, the toxic comparisons, and the petty judgments. That is simply the mud. Your consciousness is the pure, untouchable gold. The sheer inability of a spiritually blind world to recognize your vastness does not and can never reduce your vastness. A profound spiritual awakening naturally forges an indestructible emotional armor around your heart. It completely annihilates the illusion that your worth is tied to earthly metrics. You do not need to prove your light to people who are comfortable in the dark. Let your spine naturally elongate right now. Drop your shoulders and lift your chin slightly. Breathe in this serene, majestic nobility. Feel an absolute, unshakable self-confidence settling into your very bones, making you completely immune to the envy, the futilities, and the shallow applause of the physical world. You are sovereign. You are whole. But as you finally forge this unbreakable armor against the opinions of the world, and you completely detach from the need for human validation, a strange, breathtaking phenomenon begins to occur in the physical reality around you. Once you stop looking for signs of your worth in the chaotic noise of people, the fabric of the universe itself begins to speak to you directly, leaving unmistakable, mathematically precise markers scattered right across your daily path. Have you ever been walking down a perfectly familiar street, or sitting quietly in a room you have known for years, when suddenly the entire atmosphere radically shifts? For a fleeting, breath-stealing second, the physical world around you feels incredibly strange, almost plastic. The colors seem slightly altered, the depth of the room feels distorted, and you experience a visceral, undeniable sensation that you are looking at a highly detailed movie set rather than a solid, organic reality. You might experience spontaneous, spine-tingling moments of intuition that completely defy logical explanation. You wake up from vivid, impossibly lucid dreams with a heavy, lingering sensation in your chest, deeply aware that you were just somewhere vastly more real than your physical bedroom. Society, and perhaps even your own rational mind, will quickly try to dismiss these jarring moments. They will call them minor dissociations, biological glitches in your brain chemistry, or simply the random anomalies of an overactive imagination. But you feel the undeniable electric charge of these moments, pulsing in your very bloodstream. You know with absolute certainty that they mean something infinitely more profound. We are heavily conditioned to believe that human life is a chaotic, messy sequence of random events, a brutal series of unpredictable accidents crashing into us without rhyme or reason. But when a genuine spiritual awakening begins to anchor into your nervous system, this terrifying illusion of chaos shatters completely. You start to notice the impossible, staggering coincidences. You think of a highly specific, obscure concept, and mere hours later, a complete stranger speaks those exact words out loud in passing. You experience bizarre, repeating synchronicities, numbers, symbols, or chance encounters that align with such breathtaking mathematical precision that it feels as though the universe itself is leaning in and whispering directly into your ear. This is not a chaotic universe throwing random luck your way. This is a meticulously orchestrated rescue mission. And the most astonishing or inspiring part of this mission is who exactly planned it. Long before you took your first breath, before you voluntarily immersed yourself in the heavy, blinding amnesia of this physical body, your eternal consciousness knew that you would eventually get profoundly lost in the dense fog of the human experience. You knew the amnesia of the Matrix would be suffocating. So, your infinite self did something brilliantly strategic. You left behind a hidden map of stellar crumbs. You deliberately planted highly specific coordinates, secret energetic triggers, and pre-programmed alarms intricately woven into the very fabric of your earthly timeline. Those bizarre coincidences, those sudden flashes of absolute clarity, those surreal, chilling moments where the physical reality seems to glitch before your very eyes, they are not accidents of fate. They are the temporal alarms you set for yourself eons ago. Let that staggering truth send a wave of electricity down your spine right now. Every serendipitous encounter that changed your trajectory, every inexplicable intuition that saved you, every profound epiphany that has struck you like lightning throughout your entire life was placed there by your own hand. You are the secret architect of your own rescue. Your immortal soul literally bent the fabric of time and space, leaving glowing breadcrumbs of light hidden in your earthly future, knowing exactly when your human avatar would be ready to stumble upon them. You pre-programmed these majestic alarms to ring only when the heavy slumber of the human illusion was finally ready to break. The sheer magnitude of this realization shifts the entire gravity of your existence. You are not a tiny, insignificant creature navigating a massive, indifferent universe. You are the master weaver of the timeline, carefully guiding yourself out of the dark. And if your entire life has been a sequence of these hidden alarms, carefully ticking down and guiding your steps to the exact moment you are finally ready to open your eyes, then it brings us to a terrifyingly beautiful realization about the very space you are occupying in this precise second. What happens when the final, most crucial alarm on your cosmic timeline is finally triggered? Listen very closely to the quiet of your room right now. As these final words reach your ears, I need you to understand something with absolute, unwavering certainty. You did not stumble upon this message by some random glitch in a digital algorithm. You did not arrive here by chance. This exact moment is the synchronized lock finally turning. It was your own immense consciousness long before you were born that bent the fabric of time to ensure this exact truth would find you today, in this very second. You placed this final, undeniable alarm on your own earthly path because you knew that today would be the day your period of sleep officially ended. There is no going back. The heavy blindfold has been permanently untied. This profound peace settling into your bones right now is the ultimate, irreversible seal of your true spiritual awakening. You have remembered exactly who you are, and it is now beautifully impossible to ever close your eyes to your infinite nature again. You are fully awake, and you are finally home. If you have stayed with me until this very last second, and you feel this absolute truth vibrating in your chest, anchor your new frequency in the comments below by typing the exact words, "My alarm has sounded, and I am awake." If this cosmic remembering shifted something deep inside you and you want more of this expansion, click on one of the videos appearing on your screen right now to keep diving into the mysteries of your existence. And if you wish to actively support this sanctuary and gain access to exclusive content, consider becoming a channel member today. Welcome back to the light.